Here we are again. Another few months have passed, another found media video. I've probably said this before, but I like doing these every few months to catch up on what's been found, even the stuff I wasn't following super closely. It's an interesting way to stay updated and in the know about current interests, and overlap from other communities too. Not to mention, if you happen to be sleeping on a certain search, you might be surprised to hear, oh, that's been found now? There's a pretty good mix of topics from different categories as well. So with that said, let's start with the first topic. Okay, this first entry is a big one, and one that I had actually talked about before in a video many years ago, but it was almost entirely lost for decades before that. It became a highly desired piece of content from the anime and animation fans, for this elusiveness, and I kinda thought it would never get found, given the circumstances. But then, just as has happened many times before, it more or less just showed up when no one was expecting. This topic is the uncut version of the Fist of the North Star movie, which had been missing ever since its 1986 theatrical release. The series takes place in a post-apocalyptic world, and a large portion of its content involves intense martial arts battles. The manga series is rather known for its heavy violence and gore, which was adapted into the movie that was released into theaters. Already, Toei Animation had issues with keeping the anime appropriate for TV, but once that movie released, it seemed to cross a line, as complaints reached the Diet of Japan, who asked Toei to edit the film. This is where the censored version came into existence, as the gore was made less visible, and was not as clear on the screen as it was originally animated. This edit is also the version that was released on home media, and nobody had seen the original product since its theater version. Nobody even knew if Toei still had the masters, or lost them, as they've never commented about it publicly. So over the years, as interest in the anime gained popularity, fans became aware of this uncensored version and found small pieces of it that have been saved. I've never watched the movie myself, but apparently there's still a lot of blood that remained even in the edited version, though some international VHS tapes have more of the gory content than even what was released onto home media in Japan. And then there was a trailer for the film that was uploaded online, which contains an edited scene fully intact. But people still wanted that full, uncensored experience, and that was the Holy Grail. Back in 2015, the first rumors of the uncensored version made the rounds online, as a Baltimore theater claimed to have been in possession of an unaltered print that was used as a master. But to this day, no one has been able to confirm what exactly was in this copy, and nobody who watched it has come forward either. Aside from that, and a list of censored content that has been compiled from fans, there were some film reels that showed up at auction over the past few years, but it seemed like there was always a problem with these auctions. Their legitimacy was questioned. Not to mention the price tags were very high, which in itself would have been a hurdle, but taking an expensive gamble on an item that might not have even been the right cut was something no one wanted to do. I've even heard that the two separate auctions were actually for the same reel that had passed hands over the years, so none of this was really feasible and it was a little confusing to say the least. It would have been ideal if someone who just already had a print would be willing to share it, or at least can confirm the content on the reels before selling it to someone in the community. And well, while it took another decade for that to happen, after those first reports of the Baltimore copy, in July 2025, we would finally see what it was Toei had to censor, as an anime restoration group called Kaneko Video released clips of the uncensored scenes online for free. Though it's not really the complete uncensored experience some people were expecting. On the Internet Archive page for the uploads, they state a lot of insightful information about the origin of this reel, including that these scenes specifically were discovered to be attached to a 35mm print of the rest of the film. So basically what's explained here is that the film reel itself is actually the censored version, but shows signs of splicing right where the uncensored scenes begin and end. This suggests that Toei physically cut the uncensored portions out of the reel at the theaters. That's why the cuts on this reel seem so sloppy, and it's speculated that the controversy came in while the movie was still running in theaters. Which means we'll probably never see an actual untouched copy of this film. Still, this is as close as we've ever been able to get, and it's still an amazing find. The next topic is one that I had heard about in passing over the years, but never fully understood what it was supposed to be. So when I heard the topic got found, well, partially found, it got me to look into it further and learn what it really is. Unlike the usual areas where lost media comes from that we talk about on the channel, this one comes to us from the movie theater. Again. And when you think about it, this is actually a really common place for content to go missing. Whether it's extra content that was only shown with a theatrical release, or even those games and promos that air before the previews. Very few people, if anyone, really saves this stuff. And for 7 years, nobody had this theatrical lost media from the first release of The Incredibles 2 film, a special segment that aired before the movie itself. According to the Lost Media Wiki article, this short showed some of the film's crew on camera, apologizing for how long it took to get the sequel made. Both movies released almost 15 years apart, and they said that the wait would be worth it. This became known as The Incredibles 2 Cast Apology. The vagueness of the title and coming from a movie I never saw was probably why I had always looked over it. But after doing some research, I can clearly see why this intro in particular is so popular. It's something that many people remember from when they were younger, and had tried to find online over the years, but came up empty-handed. I can definitely relate to having a memory of something from childhood that I just cannot find, and the fact that so many other people remember this makes it much more desirable to them. It's a shared memory. Unsurprisingly, this apology was not included on any home media release or any streaming service release, and after consulting the Lost Media Wiki forums, apparently a lot of movies have lost intro sequences like this too. I remember seeing something similar for the Sonic 2 movie, thanking the viewers for seeing it in the theater. But no matter, I can see why it didn't get saved. It was just a little extra for theater goers who saw the premiere. So then the question is, how are we supposed to find a 30-second intro piece that had a limited run and nobody was expecting to be there? There's only one way: theater bootlegs. It's very likely that someone either filmed the whole movie from start to finish, or had clips of this intro somewhere online, and we just had to find the fan that did. Early 2024 was when this thread started, and it seems like the majority of its searching and discussion took place throughout the year, but discussion died down by the end of the year. At that point, only one video had been found from the premiere at the El Capitan Theater, but the recording stops right before the actual apology. The comments even point out how this was almost found media, but this is exactly on the right track. And in August 2025, a copy was sourced this way. Well, nearly. User Angie Dolls had been doing some research of their own after having remembered the apology themselves, and found a theater recording from the premiere on another channel. This user also had a review of the movie on their channel, posted around the same time as that premiere video, and in it, included a full audio copy of the apology. We could finally hear it, but not see it, as unfortunately this is not accompanied by any of the visuals. I'm wondering why this video contains the audio but no visuals, as you'd think both would have been recorded. Nobody asks about that in the comments section, and it's not explained anywhere. So maybe this audio actually came from a different source, and this user just used it in their video. If anyone has an answer about that, I'd like to know what it is. But clearly, we do still have some more searching to do to get this topic completely found. This wouldn't be the first time I've talked about Chuck E. Cheese or Showbiz Pizza lost media, and I've always said that I wanted to cover more of those topics in the future. The only problem is there aren't a whole lot of large topics to cover, and even of those, they're nearly impossible to locate. But I think this topic definitely passes as both a larger, more notable piece, and ended up being found in an unexpected way. Though I think this might have technically been found last year, I only heard about it this year and I didn't talk about it before, so I'm going to now. So back in the day, Showbiz Pizza had a promotion that you might have heard about before. It's quite famous within the community. It was held at participating locations in March 1983, and it was called Crazy Colander Head Night. This promotion encouraged customers to decorate a colander, wear it on their heads into the restaurant, and participate in events. This ranged from being indoctrinated into the colander group, winning prizes, and decoration contests. Not only that, but the animatronic characters actually had original show tapes that were made for this event, both discussing the upcoming promotion and then talking about the colanders on the nights themselves. What this ended up being was one of the biggest revenue months of all time for corporate. So given how popular the promotion was, it goes without saying that the company wanted to make a sequel for this, to gain even more attention and customers. What did they come up with? Well, that was an event called Junk Day. Ever heard of this one before? Probably not, because its planned implementation never really happened. Contrary to Colander Night, where fans wore funny headpieces, Junk Day's premise was for people to bring in junk or discarded items that would be used to decorate the wall areas in a sort of abstract way. But according to rumors, this went horribly wrong, as people were bringing in actual garbage that posed health hazards and could not be used. It got so bad that allegedly, Junk Day was abruptly cancelled and the promotion became one of urban legend over the years. But the lost media in this case comes in the form of those show tapes that the animatronics would have used for the event. Did any of those exist that promoted the event? Well, over the years, small pieces of their existence had been uncovered, like a listing for 2 separate junk skits within the Rockefeller Explosions tape library, as well as photos from Creative Engineering's physical location that showed reels for junk skits. Aaron Fechter even mentions them directly in a tour video, proving without a doubt they exist. So the question became, how would these actually be unearthed? Would they simply be uploaded in an official capacity someday? Or would a fan end up acquiring copies of them? Well, in the summer of 2024, it was the latter, but not in the way you'd expect. Apparently, at the location of an old arcade that was in disarray, and I mean like it was in really bad shape, a collection of show tape audio and videos were discovered among the ruins, and hidden in the group was a reel labeled junk skits. Well, kinda. At first it was believed the junk tapes might not have actually been on these, as the labels for them were crossed out. And given how quickly the promotion ended, that wouldn't have surprised anyone. Not only that, but these had been sitting around for years, and looked like they were in really rough shape. If you told me an urban legend of Showbiz Pizza would show up undisturbed for years or decades in an eerie building beyond repair, I'd say take your made-up story to the Creepypasta wiki. But to everyone's surprise, this was the real deal, and they were digitized and uploaded online. What was once only a rumor had now been recovered. This video by ShowbizPizza.com has the full tapes uploaded, and does a really good job highlighting the whole history and search. Though it does pose another mystery at the end, which is, to this day, we still don't know if the junk tapes or the event itself were ever used at any locations. There have been no internal memos, press articles, or evidence that suggest the event ever took place. So the whole part about customers bringing in hazardous garbage could be an urban legend. The only clues that suggest it possibly could have happened at any locations comes from a Halloween commercial where hubcaps can be seen spotted on a wall, a sort of junky item. And then, a photo taken from the Fort Worth, Texas location where random items can be seen plastered on a back wall. That definitely seems like junk to me. This was taken before 1985 and was close to the corporate offices, so it's believed the event might have been test marketed and then scrapped after its supposed failure. But more information about its release and implementation in stores would definitely help solve the other questions about it. After a decade of me talking about lost media here on my channel, I'm finally covering a topic from the Muppets. I remember for years and years I would get requests to talk about the many different areas of lost Muppet content, but I just never really made my way into that community. It's not that I disliked the Muppets, I just wasn't really a big fan of the series, so I was sort of impartial to their content. However, today we'll discuss a really interesting piece of Muppets found media from one of the many different canceled TV adaptations the series has attempted. This one in particular is from 2000 and is titled The Muppets Present, the working title for a new show. The project was officially announced in a press release in 2001 and was in development for Fox, with a planned 2002 release date. Its premise was to be sort of a reboot to the series, as it would feature new characters alongside the classic ones, and reiterates that it's not simply a remake of the original show. However, no further details about this project would ever resurface before its quiet cancellation. Despite its surprising lack of details, fans had speculated that a pitch video for the show did exist, and indeed it did. In August 2025, YouTube user Abagel uploaded that series' 4-minute pitch, which was sent by Chris Stultz, a blogger and YouTuber himself. I was kinda curious about what the pitch was all about, as this would have only been intended for use internally with executives, So I gave it a watch, and oh my god was it unhinged. It features Kermit and Pepe pitching the concept of the show, of which Kermit states will be wholesome and family friendly, whereas Pepe constantly interrupts with his own ideas. He tricks Kermit into saying ass on more than one occasion, then claims that they'll have guest stars be naked because it's very European, followed by clips of female guests with censor bars over their clothed bodies. And then when they get to this guy, Pepe jokes that he doesn't want to see that, and the screen changes. Finally, he makes a possibly derogatory joke at the expense of someone's last name. This dialogue is something I would have just never expected to hear from the Muppets, even in an internal pitch. Kermit insists the show is going to be family friendly, so I don't think the actual show would have been as in your face as this. But there is a script for an actual episode that was posted online, which includes a rap battle between Eminem and Sam the Eagle, and a blind date segment between Fozzie Bear and a blonde girl named Jenna, who can be seen in a hot tub wearing a bikini. The joke here is that Jenna is trying to be seductive, whereas Fozzie is being oblivious. The writer even stated the series was intended to be edgier and contain more pop culture references, which definitely comes through in just these two scenes. But it's so wild hearing this stuff come out of a puppet's mouth, especially a Jim Henson puppet. I don't think anything else really came out of this pitch from what I found online. Though before the planned premiere, Kermit apparently appeared on The Daily Show in 2001 to promote the upcoming program, and claimed it was coming soon, even though it never did. Nobody knows for sure why this was cancelled, but I think it was just one of those things that fell apart. Speculation says that the previous failed project, Muppets Tonight, might have played a role in this series' cancellation. And then following this iteration, years later, an entirely new attempt was created in the form of the Muppets 2007 pilot, which is still lost media. Let's conclude the video with a SpongeBob topic, one that I had actually never heard about before. This one is pretty similar to the Incredibles castopology as well, because this topic is also one that was never really supposed to be saved, and was more or less just made to be entertaining. It even crosses over into Lost theme park territory, given that it was made for a physical attraction, though nobody who attended this back then would have ever thought about recording it. Well, most people. This topic takes us to 2003, around the time the series was still at an early point in time, but was without a doubt very popular. If you had visited the Mall of America or Kings Island back then, you could have rode the SpongeBob 4D ride, also called The Ride and 3D Ride. This was an immersive attraction that took audiences along with SpongeBob as he attempted to recover a lost pickle in order to complete his Krabby Patty. The ride itself has been very well documented online, which can give you an idea of what it was like. But something that didn't find its way online was the pre-show that played during the line queue. It's common for rides to have little clips or props around to keep the guests entertained as they wait, and for this one, a SpongeBob sequence played on TVs. The earliest thread that discussed this in the lost media community was made all the way back in 2022, and described the scene as SpongeBob waiting in line himself, before turning to the audience and introducing who he was, followed by clips from the cartoon that played afterward. But given the popularity of SpongeBob, and the fact that this ride was so widely available in the US, it's not surprising to hear that some pictures and clips had shown up over the years, but most were in low quality, and the whole pre-show video was not saved. Not to mention, the ride is now defunct, at least I think it is. There are some lists that make it seem like a couple are still around, but I think they're actually outdated, so none are in operation. Though even if the ride was still operational, who knows if the Q video would still be running with it. If someone could have just gone to a location and recorded this in the modern day, I'm sure they would have by now. So this means once again, we're dependent on fan recordings that someone would have from that long ago, on top of the fact that they would also have to know it's lost media in the first place. Well, spreading awareness is a powerful tool, because in July 2025, the Lost Media Busters made a post talking about the topic, when user GreenThingCTR replied stating they had the entire video, from back when a recording had been posted on YouTube at one point in time. Without any hesitation, the video resurfaced the next day and was uploaded to YouTube again, where it can currently be viewed. The video is in pretty low quality, as should be expected, but it's very fun to watch and is 8 minutes in length. That's a really long time for someone to have stood there and recorded, but it's a great find, and one that definitely could have stayed lost for a lot longer if this had not been saved or recorded at all. It's the only known copy of it in existence, and had this user not downloaded it back in the day, I don't know how you'd find the original copy, especially if the channel that posted it is long gone. And that's it. Those are some of my favorites from the past couple months. How do you think 2025 is shaping up compared to previous years? I personally feel like the momentum slowed down after Me and My Friends was found, but a lot of this stuff is really cool, and usually there are some more big hits in the final part of the year. So we'll have to see what else comes up next.
A true ninja always stays on top of their training, just as a true viewer stays up to date with the latest videos. So, why not grab another cup of green tea and watch some more? I'd stick around this digital dimension myself, but I gotta get back to my teammates. See you in the next chapter.